we can share our learnings.
Thank you very much. And we are given about an hour, and looks like we're past about 10 minutes. So in the remaining 45 minutes, I shared the agenda with you. So briefly, want to talk about, begin with some introduction on publishing, then go on about finding your research topic, how you conduct your research. And we want to speak from the editor's point of view. As editors, when we look at research, when we receive manuscripts, so what do we look for, and what are certain manuscripts we push right away, and what are something they send out for review, and so on. And beginning with the publishing, as an editor, I share my experience. When anytime I receive a manuscript, first, if the writing is not clear, if the introduction is not clear, if the paper doesn't read well, I expect to read a story. If I don't see one, oftentimes it's a little frustrating. I don't even send it out for review. And one problem I found, especially papers coming from India, is that while writing something, there is too much of a repetition. They want to stress a point, and then, which is good, but they repeat the same thing in multiple places. And sometimes the coherency is missing. So from the editor's point of view, the very first expectation is clarity in writing, cogency, presenting the introduction, literature review, the rationale for research, whatever hypothesis, how data was collected, how they were analyzed, what are the findings, conclusion, of course, future research. Those are all basic contents I expect from any manuscript. And more importantly, it should be readable. So that's my experience. And sometimes the English may not be liking. I'm speaking from editors in the American side. The way certain papers are written, these people, the reviewers themselves comment it's not readable. So those are my experiences. I would like the other panelists to comment on that and go from there. We could start with Professor Rob, then go on to Dr. Preeti and Professor Anna.
Now, I'm not sure I belong in this group because I have never been an editor of any journal, but I have refereed some papers, and I have also been at the other end of receiving an editor's evaluation of my work. So I'll speak from that perspective. And I think Dr. Sektuvelli is very correct in the sense that writing your manuscript is probably one of the most important things you should think of in addition to your research, because you're telling a story, and that is the first impression that an editor and a reviewer would get. So it is very important that you pay attention to the journal where you are trying to publish your paper, and be very careful about the expectations of the journal, and make sure that you are not trying to publish in journals that are considered predatory, and consider journal ratings, as Dr. Rawat was just mentioning. But in the manuscript preparation stage, you really should know the submission requirements of the journals that you have selected. This may seem like a no-brainer, but failure to follow these requirements continues to be, I believe, #1 reason for the rejection of papers. And many journals have templates, and although most journals accept free format at the initial stage, try to follow the format as much as you can. And avoiding spelling and grammatical mistakes is probably the single most important advice that anybody can give you. I mean, there are tools available, Grammarly and Trinka, etc., that you can use to clean up your paper. But when you are reading your own paper, you are so caught up with the content that you sometimes don't pay attention to the grammatical issues. So get somebody who is totally different from your discipline to read it strictly for the grammatical content. And pay attention to the definition of plagiarism. And again, if a certain set of words written by an author is essentially the author's property, intellectual property, and if you want to use it in your paper, make sure you put quotation marks. If you're paraphrasing it, make sure you put appropriate references and so on. Most journals ask you to provide a list of referees. So be prepared with a list of referees who are likely to be objective. And for one of the journals that I have seen gave following as a technical rejection. That is, when they suspect plagiarism, when your manuscript is not complete, or English is not coherent enough for peer review, or references are outdated. These are reasons where it doesn't even go to the editor, the technical staff reject it. Then the editor might reject it because it doesn't fall within the aim and scope of the journal. And so if this happens, you're really losing a lot of valuable time. And so you should be very careful. And then I guess we'll have other things to talk about. I guess I'll pass on to the other panel members so that we can get back to topics.
Let's get to Professor Preeti Rawat.
What I have seen many times is the points, most of the points, are covered. What I would say is that, each journal has its, set of instructions, and those instructions should be followed by the authors or the people who are submitting their papers. For example, like say the abstract. Now, some journals would want a structured abstract where, it is broken into subcategories and they want, specific content for each one of them. Other journals may want a paragraph as an abstract. So whatever is a requirement of the journal, the author should be very mindful of that. And it should not be that you've prepared a paper for one and supposing it's got a reject there, you send it as it is to another journal. No, even one can easily make it out. Read a couple of papers from the same journal so that you know what is the expectation of the journal, and then try and formulate your paper according to the journal's requirement. Small things as, keywords. Many times you find keywords are missing. So those are some of the things that one should be very mindful of. The introduction. Now, introduction is something which is very important, and the editors generally would read the introduction to see whether, as Professor Shaktivel said, it's a story. So what is a story? You get a hang of it when you are going through the introduction. So the introduction should be written, pretty powerfully. And as pointed out, grammar and so on, referencing, these are some of the things, yes, one has to be very mindful of. And then you have various structuring throughout the papers. So I would, take it to my other colleagues here to focus on those things. But yes, overall, the structuring of the paper till the end, conclusion, referencing, those are some of the things that standard that one has to be very, very mindful of. And also the title. If you have a catchy title, then also one, immediately wants to read it. So these are some of the initial thoughts that I would want to put on the table. Over to Professor Shaktivel. We can take it forward as you ask more questions.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Professor Rana.
Okay. In my opinion, if we ask from any of the scholar that what it should be there in the paper, I think no reviewer, no editor is going to say that quality is not a perspective or criteria for them, whether it is in the structure of paper, in the storyline of the paper, it has to be there. But yet, if we see what journals do, journals host the common, and one must be aware of what debates are going on. And basis of those debates, expectation of the editors varies. We may look that journals may look similar. For example, if we talk about the multidisciplinary journals in business and management, you'll get numerous journals, hundreds of journals. But do they have the same expectations? No. On what these expectations depend? It depends on what is the philosophy of the editor, what is the objective of the journal, and what is that niche that journal is trying to establish, being common into the field. If I talk about my experience, our objective in IJEM is totally different than FIB Business Review. And FIB Business Review's objectives are entirely different than South Asian Journal of Marketing, which we have just established. So my advice to my scholars or fellow colleagues is that you need to understand the philosophy of the journal. They may look similar, but they have different objective. You need to get an understanding with them. Volunteer yourself, be a reviewer, try to read them, try to know them well, know what is the turnaround time, know what is the acceptance rate, know what is the future of the journal, so that you're not trapped. I've seen people getting trapped into the ranking and indexing lists, and later on many times the journal were out of those lists. They become very aspirant on publishing with those journals, and literally they lose. So look at, prepare your long-term plan, be associated with a few journals and learn with those. These matter. This may not help you with a quick acceptance, but can help you in establishing a relationship with some publication outlets that you target and would like to publish with for a longer period of time. That's important.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shah.
Thank you. What Professor Rana says is very important. Know the journal. Know the journal. As Professor Ravat suggested, read a few papers from the journal. Would they fit into your scheme of things? And also know the typical average turnaround time. And you might have a wonderful article, but you're going up for tenure. You need some papers within the next 1 year. And if you try to go to management science, however good your manuscript is, it's going to take 2.5 to 3 years. So you have to be aware. You may have to sometimes go to the next tier, which would provide you faster turnaround. A few journals provide very fast turnaround. I'm not promoting my journal here. We provide turnaround in 3 months. The decision is in 3 months. So certain journals do that. We take it upon ourselves and say, okay, this is a duty to all the people who are sending their manuscripts. There's no point in sitting on it. We push the reviewers to give a quick review and quick turnaround, not necessarily a sloppy turnaround. So turnaround is very critical, especially if you're going up for promotion or tenure or whatever. So as the panelists suggested, the very first topic is knowing about the journal, writing style, how to write, how to tell a story, read a few articles. And one of the things is give it to one of your impartial friends to review it for you. If you're going to review 100 times, you're not going to find any fault with it. You'll be satisfied. So give it an impartial one. So from here, let us move on to the next topic, which is oftentimes very difficult one. You may be restarting your publishing after a break, or you may just beginning. Where to find a research topic? Finding a research topic is one of the oftentimes difficult things. Anytime if you are going to start a new research topic, a new line, plan on something that will carry you at least 4 or 5 articles. So a project cannot be, you cannot be doing a project for a single paper. That could be expensive in terms of its investment. Look at each project as your dissertation. If you are just beginning, take your dissertation, turn out some paper out of your dissertation. Your dissertation has already been looked at by your advisors. They commented, you defended. So you are supposedly the expert in your area. So from your dissertation, how many papers can you get? 3, 4, go to extension 5. So similar to that, if you already done that, choose a topic similar to what you have done with your dissertation. And from that, carry on a large project so that you could get as many as 3 to 5 papers, because starting a new research topic is time consuming. The literature search alone is going to kill your time. Oftentimes you may choose a topic that has already been done, or you may end up in something that's not appealing. So spend a little time in choosing not just a research topic, a research area, a particular focus that you want to concentrate, and try to expand on that. So I request Professor Rao to say a few things about it.
I really cannot add much more to what Dr. Saktivel has already mentioned, but it is important that the research that you're doing must be current and must be of interest to the audience. When your PhD thesis clearly is current, because that's the advice you received from your doctoral supervisor. But anytime you're trying to find a new topic for research, make sure that it is current, it is meaningful in the sense that the audience will be interested in reading what you have to present. That is the publishability of the paper. Now, ask yourself, will the results that you hope to get be considered of value by the academy? You maybe have a burning passion to do a certain research, but if that is not something that academy is having the same feelings, then perhaps it's not a wise thing for you to devote your precious time to doing research in that area. And there was a time when you could do research and publish papers where you can show how clever you are in your analysis, but increasingly journals are emphasizing more and more on applications and potential applications of the research that you're conducting. So you have to have a very clear eye on what the journal's aims are, as Dr. Rawat has mentioned. That's very, very important. When, once you identify a journal, take the time to read their goals, aims, and what kind of articles they are interested in publishing. And then if your research fits into that, that is the direction that you should go to. And joint research is a very, very fruitful way of conducting a research where you can generate that synergy with your co-authors. And again, find somebody that you have respect for and that person has respect for you. So that mutual respect is very important to be a co-author. And then have a clear expectation of the responsibilities of each co-author. Of course, if you're working with a senior author, you be prepared to do all the work, grunt work. The senior author will give you the inspiration and guidance, but you should expect to do most of the work. Whereas if you're working with somebody who is at the same stage, same career stage as you are, you have a clear expectation of what each of you will have responsibility in terms of preparing the document and responding to reviews and so on. So I will then pass it on to Dr. Saktivel for the next step.
Thank you. I don't mean to go in a round robin fashion, Professor Rawat and Professor Rana, please jump in when you feel like, okay? So going in a round robin fashion may be a little monotonous. Please go ahead, Professor Rawat.
Mr. Rana, you want to take it?
That's perfectly fine, Professor Rawat, because see, we are at different stages in our career. Like if I see, I'm the youngest one, and when I started my career, had a different journey. Well, for me, it's a debate of young versus old. Similarly, like I have, when I'm discussing with my colleagues or forums like this, it's always come that it should be contemporary. The research should be contemporary. You should focus on what is timely going on. But often, one question bounds my mind is that something that we really want to have contemporary? That way, maybe the established theory will somewhere get out of the discussion somewhere. So for me, research is something that exists, but putting it in a way that nobody else can see it from the eye that you're seeing. So maintaining a balance between both of these is really important. Yes, what Professor Rao and Professor Saktivel mentioned, it is important that you know what stage of your career you are and with whom you're collaborating. That's important. That gives you new perspective. So what is the ultimate goal? The goal is to bring new perspective, to add new lenses, to see the things with different solutions. This is what we want. So in my opinion, if one need to have and especially for the budding scholars, I strongly feel that you need to maintain the balance between both what exists and what you're proposing, because often I see that budding scholars submit a paper to me which looks contemporary, but yet it forget its ontology, or say it is not well designed, that from where it came, why it is so important, though it may be very good. Especially on the COVID-19, I received in business review, we receive approximately 1,500 papers a year. That's a huge amount of paper to read, and many of these papers are written on contemporary themes, but not written well. They are not connected to the roots of the theories. So in my opinion, it is important to connect it with the established theories and see what have been looked before, and why I'm proposing this contemporary theme or topic. Thank you. Professor Raut or Professor Saktivel, yes.
Thank you.
I would say, finding a new topic, as you very rightly said, if it is, a budding researcher, vis-a-vis somebody who is a seasoned researcher now wants to do something different. So the approach, while there are similarities, there can also be a lot of differences. For example, a budding researcher essentially should use a funnel approach, is what I would say, where you read a lot in diverse areas. The top journals is what should be targeted, and that will help you understand what are the current as Professor Rana says, what are the current discussions and controversies and arguments and counter arguments that are going on. And as you are doing this, also do a mind mapping of what you are doing, what you are reading, and slowly you will start understanding that what is it that you would want to do and what is it that you really don't want to do. And that is going to help you come down to a set of doable themes. And as Professor Shaktivel says, that when you're doing a project, you can say when you've picked up an area, at least 4 to 5 research papers should be coming. So it should be having sufficient depth for you to look at it from various perspectives. Sufficient variables should be there, number of variables should be there, which will help you to also look at the whole area holistically, not only from one lens. So multiple lenses approach to look at your own area, that will help you to get a kind of a holistic understanding, and then you would be seen as just a person who's working in a particular field. For example, say it's a field of say empowerment, or a field of say thriving, or a field of say gender, whatever you picked up, you should be seen as an authority, not authority in terms of that you are the only one, but yes, somebody who's had a lot of insights into it and is also making significant contributions. And as you are a matured researcher, and that is a time peer collaboration comes in, an interdisciplinary approach where your work, how it sort of collaborates with some other discipline or some other sub-discipline, and how then you can collectively take it to a new direction. And in all of this, the more you are in touch with the journals which are publishing in that area, it will be more easier for you to keep zeroing down on what you want to do. So whether you are a budding researcher or whether you are a seasoned researcher now wanting to expand into a different field, being in touch with the journals which are publishing in that discipline. And another thing I would also say, attending conferences, here you get good networking opportunities. So like this conference, or you have the top conferences or in various disciplines, and that is where, when you're part of those conferences, you will understand what are the current themes where discussions are on, and that will also excite you in terms of how you would want to take it. So those are some of the initial steps that I would say are essential for us to either begin as a researcher. Like, for example, when I guide my own budding researchers, then what is it? It's not that I'm going to give them a topic. Yeah, they are going to explore, come back, do a submission, counter submission, and so on, and then come up with things what they want to be doing. So this is what I would say would help them in understanding a field that they want to research upon. Professor
Thank you.
Shaktivel.
I might add to that. When I was starting my career, we used to have this Decision Sciences Institute. We have we had a chapter in India that ran for nearly, I would say 11, 12 years. Then it turned into this ISDSI-G now. So similar to that, the one in the US is international. Initially, we would submit a paper there. They used to have a review process, not very rigorous, but if it's good, it will go into a paper. Otherwise, it will go into a panel session and so on. And we get an opportunity to go and present. Sometimes I may find only about 10, 15 people are attending my presentation, but oftentimes get some ideas, get some feedback. And that is very helpful in revising and sending to a journal. So before sending it to a journal, I always tested my papers in conferences and see what kind of feedback I get. And it's also a place where you get networking. And budding researchers should use the conference as the very first step to get feedback. You know, once you're experienced, you don't want to spend time in conferences on papers you send directly to a journal. That's a different issue. And from the India's point of view, if you want to find out, do some research quickly, one thing that our journal and a few other journals encourage and expect is cross-cultural research. There are a lot of research papers in marketing, organizational behavior. So a lot of those done in the US, they're all done with US corporation, US people. And I do not accept the fact that all those theories have external validity in the sense you cannot transport that to India and use those theories in India. So we encourage people, especially when we receive papers from India, we suggest, why not you take one of those published research here, quite good one, even in big journal, follow the entire thing, replicate it, and then take the findings and compare with the original research. It will through a lot of interesting highlights. Some findings that will say why certain findings in the US are not applicable in India. That kind of discussion, are there any cross-cultural differences and so on, would be very interesting. And third thing is, if you want to find research topic, you want to find collaborators, of course, as Professor Rawat said, you could find them in conferences. There are websites, for example, ResearchGate is one, Mendeley.com is one. So there you can put pretty much all of the research that you have done, and people comment, people ask for your papers, people give ideas, and you may be able to find some collaborator from the other side of the globe. So you may do collaboration virtually. And with all the tools available these days, you could easily find someone who could work with you. So these are some ideas if you want to find new research topics. So please go ahead and add if you have anything to say on this.
Yeah, Professor Saktivel, because I receive a number of calls, messages, emails on the please suggest me a topic, please suggest me something. If I see the history that how we have been choosing research topics, I think all of us will agree that we quite ask our senior fellow colleagues that, hey, can you please suggest me something that I start reading, or can you please suggest me something that have a publishing opportunity into the kind of journals that I'm targeting. So that has been the way. Yeah, that has been the way. But I think it is very important to distinguish and understand between the best and fit. We always hunt for the best. Being a scholar, that okay, my topic should be contemporary, my topic should have the capacity to get published into the top tier journals, or being a question of the debate, I mean, adding contribution to the knowledge. We look at all these characteristics while choosing a topic. But being a scholar, we have our distinguished capacities. Maybe I'm good in theory, not in analysis, maybe good in analysis, not in theory, and balancing that too also with many topics don't go hand in hand. I think scholars must understand that yes, best is one part. They should also look what is fit for them. What is that they are expecting, whether they are just expecting to get a terminal degree to get into academia, or they want to, because nowadays it is also research track, academic track, what is their long-term goal, and should choose a topic accordingly. Just asking someone that what is the best one, or taking the best feeds from the academic discussion forums may not help them for the long term. And I've seen number of scholars, even in very good institutions in India, struggling that, oh, I have chosen it while I started my PhD, but now I don't know where to go. What should I do? They should distinguish between best and fit, and always choose something that fit with them.
I understand. So you know your goals. Why are you publishing? Your objective is to publish in the best paper. Well, that is could be your objective, but you also have to go with the associated perils, delays, and so on. On the other hand, your objective is to get some publishing quickly to help with your career. That's a different goal. So you could look at it another way. That's it. Fit your style, fit your goals, and most importantly, all of us are in the management education, we should have done our own SWOT analysis. So what are our strengths, weaknesses? We definitely know our strengths or weaknesses. So if you have a weakness, for example, in certain areas, can you find a co-author who would be able to fill that gap? And also look at opportunities. You may have some interesting papers. Suddenly there is a special issue on that particular topic. Your chance of getting there is very quick. So utilize the opportunities quickly. So SWOT analysis of yourself is very important, and introspection. Professor Rao.
I mean, there is not much I can add to all the eminent editors here, but to me, research is something that you should be passionate about. Nobody else can suggest you a topic that can generate that passion in you. I mean, you can seek guidance from senior faculty members, but ultimately you need to find a topic that will drive you, because for research, the motivation has to come from within. You know, there will be failures, and in spite of the failures, you should be able to get up and continue your work on it. So passion, you have to find out what gives you that burning sensation within you to pursue that topic. And once you get that, you realize that you will be very productive and you will actually enjoy doing what you're doing.
Excellent. Now, one of the things that would be useful to some people is not all our papers are going to make it in the very first round. Some may get short, rejected. So you may have to go to the second one. And oftentimes these rejections, major revisions come with the comments. Sometimes comments could be caustic. So from editor's point of view, how do you deal with rejection? Or Professor Rao, from your point of view, so let's say your paper gets rejected, it comes with comments. Let's say some reviewer, most reviewers, in my opinion, do not give caustic comments. Sometimes people can be sarcastic and say something that could really upset you. So how do you deal with rejection in the first place, and what would you suggest to potential authors dealing with rejection? It's a common thing.
Well, I go into depression for a couple of days and then get back. And as I said, if I have a passion for that topic, I will get going. And as you said, more than 50% of the time, you get the feeling that the referees did not understand what you're trying to say. Either they didn't take the time to understand what you're trying to say, or they just are not qualified to actually make a comment. You never know. That is why it is very important that you have a good list of potential referees. Most of the journals ask you to suggest some name. They don't necessarily send it to them, but don't give the names of your co-authors or people that you have some association with, because from the references, the editors and the referees can find out if you are connected with that person. So be ready with some list of good potential referees, and you try to minimize. As was said in the beginning, you're telling a story, and you want to catch their attention right away. So tell a good story, and avoid those spelling mistakes and so on, because those immediately turn off the referees and the editors. And referees don't always get things right, and it's a fact of life. So it's a luck of the draw. If you get a good referee, even if the paper is rejected, you get valuable feedback, which can improve the quality of your paper. Very often referees, at least my experience, more than 50% of the time, they did not take the time to read my paper. So they find spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes to comment. So it's at that time, accept it as your misfortune and then move on and send it off to another journal. There is some amount of one-sided balance of power here. So it is not necessary that you just automatically give up when you get bad refereeing. You should write an appeal if you feel that your refereeing is not fair. But be respectful, be polite, explain why the referee's comments are not fair, and then leave it to the judgment of the editor to make the right call on either sending it back. One time I wrote to an editor who said, okay, send me a revised version, I'll send it back to the same referees. It is not serving me any purpose to write a revised version and send it, because the referees that originally took a stand against the paper are not going to change their mind. So cut your losses and move on to a different journal.
Yeah,
so
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, rejections occur more frequently than acceptances. So accept it and move on, and don't waste any more time on a rejection if you believe that there is no progress in going forward.
Yeah, so, if you're going to write a letter to the editor explaining, I would say wait at least a week before you start writing. So you're going to be angry, and you may be venting out your anger. So it could show up without your knowledge. So wait for a week, cool down, then start writing why a paper should be given to another referee for another review. Professor Rana and Ravat, please give some pointers.
If I look at my role, professors, and that what my job is being an editor, I think I mediate the debates. I mediate the debates between reviewers, readers, and authors. And when I do it, I read what comes in, and then I pass. One thing I really don't like is that myself and my reviewers to be the proofreader. This is certainly I don't want. I expect the authors to write a clean version, but at the same time, if in my review, number of comments are given just related to grammar and language, I don't think it adds much value to the paper, because technical aspects of the paper are much more important than those. I think, we may vary in our approach, but this is what I follow. Yeah. And other thing that is that it may possible that there are contrasts, like another colleague have also asked here, Professor Som, that there may be a contrast between the reviewers, and what should you do in this situation? Well, you can reach out to the editors, but let me tell you very, very honestly, that even if you're reaching out against a rejection, it means you're asking the editor that you have not done your job correctly and well. And do you think they are going to accept it? I don't think so. And when we are going and pointing out the fellow colleagues that the reviewer has not also done the good job, again, the responsibility come onto the editorial desk. So there, the possibility that editor will revoke the decision and give you another chance, especially in case of rejection, is rare of the rare case. They will not do. because they have taken this decision, so they would like to be with it. Then second is, if you have been given a chance of revision, yes, you then have a chance to defend yourself and take up your points, that what you can revise, what you cannot revise, why you cannot revise, and then give more citations there. I have seen that you may write the regions, and because in IJEM and FIB Business Review, when I read the response letter, I read it very, very carefully. Even if you have given region, do you have solid citation of that region, that this cannot be done? You cannot do it, and this cannot be done are two different things. You may not do it for this paper for some region, but is it something that cannot be done? I mean, this is important to mention. I think you should think many times before you write back to editors, because they're not going to change your decision in 99.99 cases. Also, develop a thick skin. Rejections are going to happen. You cannot refrain it, but at the same time, it is not a zero-sum game. So believe in yourself, keep on improving the paper and take it forward.
Yeah, Professor
Yeah,
Raghav?
to add on, situations where there are two diametrically opposite kind of reviews. One says nice paper, accepted. The other one says rejected. So in these situations, as editor, I've always sent it to a third reviewer. I don't send such reviews back to the author, because one, it's not going to help the author. Author would want to go with the one who is accepted and say, look, my paper is wonderful, and the other review I don't accept. So it's always better to go to a third review. It takes slightly more time, but at least I'm able to give the author one kind of a direction. Either it's acceptance, major revision, and then revise and come, or it would be a reject. So at least that much of support as editor I do offer. That is one. Second is, when it comes to, and then there are two types of reviewers also that I see with my journal. There are reviewers who would read the entire paper and then they will give 4 or 5, these are what you have to be majorly working on. And then there are reviewers who are going to, give review line by line, as though they have done it a track change on the paper, and then they are submitting. Both these types of reviewers are there. And so what is important is, and then as somebody, as Professor Shaktivel said, that there are some caustic reviews also. So if a reviewer has written too caustic a language, then also I see to it that that language in that sense may not be shared, because our idea is to encourage and get a positive paper out of an author, rather than to make the person feel low. So these are some of the things that we do at our level. One is give them a direction. If it is major revision, it is major revision, and that is where the editor's discretion comes in. If it is, two types of reviews, one which is done, say, line by line, then we share it as it is. When it is more in terms of overall, we give it to them. From a revision side, what I would suggest is, as very rightly said, give yourself some space, some time to absorb. Yes, there is a strong feedback that has come to me, but when you are revising it, it has to be for what all questions that have been asked. Yes, grammatical things, yes, you have to change throughout, but whatever has been asked, make those changes, prepare a separate document. This is what was asked, and this is a separate document that I'm sharing. And then the same thing you do in a different color or a different font on the revised manuscript, and then you say, so that there is a comparison, easy comparison that can be done. Sometimes reviewers also say that, send me the paper so that I would like to see whether the reviews have been done correctly and so on. Other times reviewers themselves say that we are not going to look at the revised version. So these are some of the changes that we as have to also be looking into, that if a reviewer said, no, I would not want to see a revised version, then obviously we don't send it back. But if a reviewer is open to seeing, yes, the author has made changes, yes, it is sufficient to our satisfaction, yes, then they do that. So these are some of the things that, in my journal, I try and see that ultimately we are getting good papers, contemporary papers, and we are also in line with the newer research areas that we are. Something which is very oft, done multiple times. It's just, perhaps a segment has changed. No, those are some of the things that we don't want to publish.
Hello, sorry to interrupt such an engaging discussion. In light of the paucity of time, I would just like to conclude the session. Thank you all our speakers for being with us today. We at IIM Nagpur are very delighted to host the directors panel with all our eminent guests. We had a bit of a glitch in the starting with IT related issues, but yeah, the discussion went along very smoothly. Just a short segue, we have a member from the Elsevier team who would like to present a short talk of him. I would like to invite him on stage. We will proceed with that shortly. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you may want to check your mic, please. Yeah, the voice is breaking up.
Okay, sorry. We will get to that. We will get back. Yeah, we will correct that.
So we are done, I assume.
I don't know. It's kind of abrupt. I couldn't completely hear what you're saying. So anyway, while we are still here, there is one aspect just briefly I want